I realized I just recorded an entire video and my mute button on my mic was on. So anyway, this will be the last one was 14 minutes. This can be shorter. The last one was, I just want to explain, instead of doing a Devar Torah or a drash, explain instead what I'm doing this Friday night in the Young Family Shabbat at New Reform Temple in Kansas City, Missouri. I developed a theme. I'm just supposed to show up, do songs in a service for the family who shows up. Some of those families have their kids in the Sunday school. Some of them don't. So it's kind of like a top of the sales funnel for things. So you want to bring your pre-bar bat mitzvah kid to come to a service, but you don't want to go to the adult service if you've got a young kid. So you're going to bring the whole family to this Young Family Shabbat. So sometimes there's older kids and sometimes there's very, very little kids. Like sometimes people have their babies or their 3-year-olds. So the whole service really needs to kind of stretch to adults need to have something funny or something that touches them about the experience with their kids. And then the kids across the age ranges need to be able to participate. So if you ask little kids questions, that's like a super easy way to do it. But I just wanted to share the overall theme and kind of the structure of what I'm going to do for this Young Family Shabbat on Friday night. So this Torah portion begins, the one this week. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, "Tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts. You shall accept gifts from me, from every person whose heart so moves him." And the reason for these gifts, of course, is the Hebrews, who are going to travel for many years through the desert, are building their Mishkan, a place where God will be there among them. Build me a sanctuary so that I may be among you. So when we get together, I think when we get together in this circle, in the social hall in New Reform Temple, I think a big question is, how do we bring God to us? We're not going to build the Mishkan there, but we are going to pray and we're going to be together. So what are some of the ways that the Siddur, in our experience there, how can we bring God in with us? So here we are, we're at the synagogue. How do we bring God here? The Torah portion talks about building a big box in a tent so God can be there. We're not going to do that. We're going to ask how we do it here. So the prayer book is like this big menu of prayers about all things. And I think it's okay for people to be bored because there's a lot of words in it and you get distracted. People can argue with it. You can read a prayer and say, I don't agree with that. You can agree. You can read a prayer and be like, wow, I really agree with that theology. You can read a prayer or hear a song and maybe you feel something. Maybe you feel bored, but maybe you feel excited, or maybe you feel soothed, or maybe you feel your mind drifts away, or maybe you feel like there's some poignant thing, a line that jumps out at you. All those things are okay, and they all happen in the prayer book. So really, I'm just going to present to people. This is a menu of things inside the prayer book that the prayer book uses and Judaism uses to help bring God to us so we can feel God in this moment. So one way we bring God in is in song. And so because I start the younger kids in Sunday school off with this song called Now We Say Shalom, arranged by Stephen Richards. I think it's a folk song arranged by Stephen Richards. I just change it slightly. So instead, we come to the start of another day, and now we say shalom. I do. We come to the end of another week, and now we say Shabbat shalom. So the kids who have heard the song, it's a little tweak. That's kind of interesting. Don't you like it when things get tweaked a little bit? So it's not the same old, same old. And then the people who don't know the song, all you have to know is Shabbat Shalom. So it's very easy. So the first two Hebrew words you're being exposed to really inside the service are just Shabbat Shalom. Next, we do one way we bring God in is being together. And the very first page of the second evening service inside the family Siddur we use at New Reform Temple has this page that talks about us coming together to pray. One way we bring God in is for resting for Shabbat. So I think I will encourage everybody to take a good breath in, a good breath out. And then we'll start with a song that starts out quiet and slow and then builds in intensity, bim bam. So I borrowed this thing from Chazan Tal Ben Yehuda at Congregation Beth Shalom in Overland Park here in town. And she has this thing where at the beginning of Bim Bam Shalom, instead of starting out with Bim Bam, but she starts Shabbat Shalom. So there's like a physical quality. You're using your body and you're playing with music. So you're thinking about notes going up and down. And as well, you're starting out slowly and then you get Shabbat Shalom, hey, and then everybody's hey. So you kind of start out slowly and work your way in. So it's like Shabbat. You take a breath, you breathe in Shabbat, and then you come in and you get the energy you need for the worship. And that leads us right into one way we bring God in is by answering our call to worship. We're making sure we're all here. We did it. Everyone's paying attention. That's what the Baruch Hu is for. So we rise for the Baruch Hu, and I use the Noah Aronson one. Ya, wait. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. After the Baruch Hu, everybody's seated. The next page is about creation. So there's two major blessings that come in an evening before the Shema. One is about creation. One is about we love God because God gave us rules. So the first one is about creation. Grateful for nature. Favorite place to be outside. Favorite animal. Favorite park. Favorite thing about nature. Whatever it happens to be. So ask some people to share, like, what do you really like? What's something that calls out to you in nature? Because the page is that, I think it might be the entire poem, and I forget where it comes from, but all creatures great and small, and they have the entire thing there as their substitute for doing the normal blessing before the Shema for creation. Next, we move on to love. It is about love. One way we bring God in is by following rules and being kind. So I think I want to talk about love as what's a way you are kind, and then what's a rule you follow that helps people. In other words, you're kind because you follow this rule. So I'll see if anybody wants to think about rules. If they don't, we'll just responsibly read this English and then we'll move on. One way we bring in God is by paying attention to God with da-da-da, Shema. And so we encourage everybody to close their eyes to concentrate. We rise for the Shema at New Reform Temple. People are standing when they do the Shema. So if they stand for the Baruch Hu, sometimes they stay standing all the way to the end of the Shema, and then they chant Ve'ahavta. But here, because I don't want everybody to have to stand around while we do Q&A, we're going to stand up for the Baruch Hu, sit down for the Baruch Hu, sit for the two blessings before the Shema, rise for the Shema, and then sit. After the Shema, I skip over at least one page. We were slaves once, we talk about, and one way we bring in God is by freeing not just us in the room, because we are free, but thinking about all the people in the world who are not free in Michamocha. So trying to universalize the Michamocha, not just saying, hooray God for freeing the Jews, but to say, how are we not free? How are other people not free? So we'll sing Friedman's Michamocha. Ya la 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 la. Okay. Now we're to the big one. One way we bring in God is remembering our ancestors. So then I'll ask some people, who are ancestors? What is an ancestor? Who are your ancestors? Can you tell me about your grandma, your grandpa, your great-grandma, your great-grandpa, your great-uncle, or someone in your family? And then to say, that's what we're going to talk about first in the Amidah. The most important prayer begins with recognizing who our Jewish ancestors are in the stories of the Torah. So everybody rises. We're not going to do the Hebrew version. We're going to do a much shorter responsive English version that's there for the Avot. So, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, we go through the names and it's very short. And then everybody's seated for the rest of the Amidah. Next, I jump over. There's obviously stuff in there celebrating Kiddushat Hayom. There's stuff celebrating Shabbat. There's Vishamru or Yismachu. And for time reasons, I'm going to cut that out and I'm going to move toward the end of the Amidah. Before we leave the Amidah, one way we bring in God is working for and praying for peace. So what is peace? When we say we want peace, what is peace? What does it mean if I say I'm feeling peaceful? So we can kind of talk about peace is the opposite of war or hatred or violence. And then what does it mean to be peaceful? Maybe it means you're calm. Maybe it means you feel loved. Maybe it means you feel safe. And so that's what we're hoping for, a time when everyone feels whole and safe. So we'll have a responsive reading, and then we'll do the very short Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha. Or Sim Shalom, Sim. Now we've hit the concluding prayers. One way we bring in God is praying for a better world for everyone. So we prayed for peace. We want the feeling of peace. And we want everyone to be whole. But now we're saying the whole world. We pray for a time when the whole world is redeemed. When the whole world, it says in the actual prayer, follows one God. So this is the Jews kind of saying, we pray for a time when the one God has been proven to be the one God and everyone follows the one God, and we're allowed to pray and live as Jews, and other people are allowed to pray and live as they want, but there's peace in the world and everyone gets along. That's the hope of Aleinu. So we have this big dream at the end. But the Jewish service doesn't end there. One of the ways we bring in God in a Jewish service at the very end is to remember those that we miss, who aren't with us anymore, who have died. So every service ends, if you have a minyan, every service ends with the mourner's Kaddish. So if someone is in a period of Shiva, they're 7 days of mourning, 30 days of Shloshim, they're in a period of saying a yahrzeit for someone every day for 11 months, or they're remembering a yahrzeit, or you're just remembering someone who isn't there with you, who has died, who is no longer here. Every Jew at these services, we end it with that. We begin at the very beginning talking about how great we're all together. And at the end, we say, but we remember those who aren't here. So everyone will rise to the mourner's Kaddish, and we'll do the mourner's Kaddish in Hebrew. So just like the Aleinu, this is the longest stretch of Hebrew at the end in these concluding responses. I wanted to kind of front load English, front load songs, and then I like the fact that there's these two things at the end that have kind of a couple pages of Hebrew. So if people do want some Hebrew and it resonates with them and they're more used to more of the Hebrew, then they can happily and comfortably chant the mourner's Kaddish. They can happily, comfortably chant the Aleinu, sing the Aleinu with me. And of course, at the end, the last thing we bring in God is we eat. With Shabbat, a lot of times, especially in the summer, the days, in the winter, the days end earlier. And so Shabbat starts earlier. Completely confused. I could probably stop here, but whatever. Let me just finish my thought. Lots of times people go to services and they come home and eat. They go to services and come home and eat. In some places, the service is so late because the day is so long, or their particular synagogue just has services very late. Sometimes people eat dinner first and then go. But in this case, we had to get there early for our young family Shabbat, and we know everybody's hungry. And so in addition to the challah that got passed around already, we now have pizza upstairs and bring your own dessert upstairs. Everybody brought a dessert. It should be great. But that is effectively what's going to happen at Young Family Shabbat. I'm shocked. I did it in 2 minutes less this time because I didn't talk so much blathering about whatever the hell I was blathering about. So that's it. I don't know. Maybe I'll see you at New Reform Temple. I probably won't, but maybe I will. Shabbat Shalom.